Elder scams. It's devastating when you or a family member realizes they were a victim of a fraud. And sometimes that monetary fallout can be your life savings. They're out there waiting to target you, those con artists calling you, and those computer hackers who are sending you texts and messages and emails all the time. Hi, I'm Michael Hinman. I'm the executive editor of Herald Community newspapers, and welcome to Herald Inside LI. And this is part 2 of our Fighting Fraud series that we're doing with AARP New York. We're bringing you the most current and valuable information about the latest scams that you need to tell your family members about, and really you need to, that you need to also keep in mind as well. We have a talk with our panelists here, and you'll also have a chance to see them in a recorded video that even if you missed something here today, you can go back and take a look and get all that great information, because awareness is the best defense. So over the next hour, we're going to learn how to recognize some of the most common elder scams. So let's meet our panelists here. Joining us is Bernard Macias. He's the Associate State Director of AARP New York and Long Island, I believe, right, Bernard?
I am. Thank you.
Donna Harris is the Public Information Representative for the United States Postal Inspection Service headquarters. And also joining us is Joseph E. Marcus. He's a postal inspector with the New York division. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are you?
So Bernard, so get us started on this. So we're talking about elder fraud abuse today, and there's so much to this, and I know AARP deals with this quite a bit. It really helps a lot of people with this.
We do. Thank you, Michael. Greetings, everyone. On behalf of AARP New York, I want to welcome you to today's fraud webinar from our series titled "Fighting Against Fraud: Learning the 411 on Recognizing a Scam." And again, I am the Associate State Director for AARP right here on Long Island for community outreach and engagement. We serve close to 500,000 members across Nassau and Suffolk. We have the highest concentration of membership nationwide. Nationwide AARP, 38 million members. A little bit more about AARP. We're the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. And we strengthen communities. We advocate for what matters most to families with a very special focus on health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. So if you remember anything about AARP today, remember that we are all about health, wealth, and self. And we today are trying to protect your wealth. That's why AARP Long Island and Herald, we are so proud to present this 3-part webinar series on fraud. And then we're going to end our series with an in-person shredding event, all sponsored by AARP Long Island. This webinar series is going to focus on scams that AARP and our very good friends from the U.S. Postal Inspection Service believe that you should be aware of. So by the end of today's program and series, you're going to know more about how to protect yourself from scams and fraud. Knowledge is power. So please, I encourage you to pay attention and share what you learned today. So last week, we covered identity theft. Today, we're going to cover elder fraud. Next week, romance. And like I said, we're going to end our series with a shredding event. Advanced registration for everything is required. And I will say this, being a recent victim of identity theft, I know firsthand how disruptive, how extremely violating it is, how hurtful and life-changing it can be, to a victim. So again, I encourage you to learn today how to protect yourself and loved ones. So we're going to cover elder fraud abuse. Con artists, we know this, they don't care about your age, your needs, none of that. They're targeting older adults. And I know my friends at the U.S. Postal Inspection Service will agree that the reason why they're targeting older adults is because they will gain the most financial gain from these folks, right? They own a home, they have good credit. So financially, they have a lot more at stake and they're a lot more attractive to scammers. Next week, on Thursday, April 28th, also at the same time, 12 to 1, we're going to be talking about romance scams. Adults of all ages, this, they're going online in hopes of finding love and companionship. And the monetary losses are big. Sadly, you don't really get your money back on a lot of the romance scams. You don't want to miss this one, but I also want to encourage that, this is sponsored by AARP, and it's all about, our people, 50 plus and older. But it also includes families. I want to make something very clear that whatever we're covering today is really important for people of all ages. We have a lot of young adults. I know my children are online all the time. They're on their phones. Romance scams can happen to anybody at any age. So please learn today so that you can protect yourself tomorrow. April 30th, we have our in-person free shredding event, which we'll talk more about that later on in this presentation, and you need to register for that as well. So Mike, right back to you in the program.
Yeah, and Bernard, and that's great. And just to let you know that I also am, I personally, I don't have a connection. I think we all probably know somebody who's been victimized. But you've been directly, but my father, who's about to turn 89, a longtime AARP member in Florida, actually, and he was scammed out of $10,000 probably 5 or 6 years ago, where he knew that he knew it was a scam. But what happens is that they can be so forceful, so overpowering, that he still gave them the money, even though he knew that what they were telling him wasn't true. But it's just they can become overpowered. And sometimes older people, especially when you get into your 80s like that, it's a lot easier to get overpowered. And I think that's why they probably get targeted so much. So, and it's just, I think it's so important. And Donna, and I'm sure there's a lot that you can share in terms of how to avoid that and what to look for.
Oh, yes, most definitely. We're very happy to be here today. I want to thank the Long Island Herald Initiative for this, and also AARP, our partners in helping to prevent scams. It's like, I guess, a forewarned consumer is the best consumer, and you want to get this information out to individuals, and that's what we're here to do today. So last week, we talked a little bit about, a lot of it about identity theft. And there were some questions that we didn't get to. So I like to say that identity theft, just as a wrap up, or, from last week, is the theft of your financial DNA. It's everything about you, everything that makes you, you. And it's unfortunate when this occurs, but there were some questions last week that I just want to briefly go over. So how do we prevent ID theft through email scams? So don't click on any links. That's the first thing you do. If you get an email and you didn't solicit the email, don't click on any links. Am I ahead of myself, Michael? Can I continue?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, you're doing
all right.
great.
And then Joe,
you're fantastic.
Okay, Joe, would you like to add anything to that?
I think I'll touch on some of it within the presentation. I'll build upon that.
Okay, fantastic. And then someone asked this, when you get a call from the PBA, is this real or a scam? Well, there are some that are legitimate businesses. But what I'd like to do, instead of giving over the phone, because you don't know who you're speaking with, ask them to mail you the information. In addition to that, to be safe when giving, always call your local police department and ask them. If you see an officer, ask them, where can I give? Where can I assist your activities? And they'll be happy to tell you if they have programs such as after-school programs or schools for officers. They'll be happy to give you that information. Never give to anybody that just calls you on the phone and randomly asks you to donate. I had this happen to me recently, a state troopers organization, the National State Troopers Organization. And I was almost ready to give until they started asking questions and wanted my credit card right away. And what they told me is that don't be upset. We're legitimate. You don't have to give us the 3 numbers on the back. But what does that mean? If I give you the credit card number, you don't necessarily need the 3 numbers on the back, your security code. So just always remember, it's best to know who you're giving to as opposed to just giving, unfortunately.
And that's actually kind of hard too, Donna, right? Because they're police, and so you think they're police at least, and so you don't want to just hang up on them, but you feel like
right.
So some people keep listening because these are people who serve and protect us,
and so believe it or not, they called me. I remember they called me at 8:48 in the morning, and I hung on the phone because he had such an authoritative voice, and I wanted to help. They had 3 levels of giving, but then they kept sending me from him to his manager to his manager's manager to verify that I was who I said I was, and that I was going to verify my credit card information and my address. And I don't know, I was like, this doesn't seem right. And I always say, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right, okay? And then someone says here, what about, let's see. Oh, this is a good question. I don't know how much I can provide, but what about the DNA test I saw in 60 Minutes, like Ancestry.com not being regulated and the possibility of stealing your ID? I don't really have a lot I can add to that, but I'm always cautious when it comes to my ID. I always want to do one of those, but I've never done it. I believe that these companies, they have built in some security, but we don't endorse any companies, and we can't tell you what type of security they have, but it's your ID, and please be safe with it. Don't randomly give it out to find out about your ancestry, and then you look down the road and now you have lost your identity. It's a very violating feeling. I mean, I've gone out to dinner, someone I used my debit card, come back the next day, and someone actually stole $600 out of my account. And the week before Christmas, so I wasn't very happy about that. And it's a lot to do to get your identity cleared again. So, but with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start our presentation today. So let me share my screen and go into presentation mode and do the slideshow. And hopefully you all can see my screen. Can you all see my screen? Fantastic. Yes. So a little bit about the Postal Inspection Service. We've been around since 1775, August 7th, and we've been protecting consumers since that time. In New York, we have 223 inspectors, support, and postal police officers. We have 91 inspectors in New York approximately, and we're getting new inspectors through every class, protecting consumers from fraud. We're going to be talking to you today just about that elder fraud abuse. And these are some of the things we're going to cover: telemarketing and mail fraud, prizes, lotteries, and sweepstakes scams, grandparent scams, charity fraud, investment fraud, imposter scams, work at home job opportunities, and romance scams. But a staggering number, the losses to lottery and sweepstakes and fraud alone, $5.7 billion in 2021. I remember this statistic being in the $3 billion range. That is a huge amount, but think about this. It keeps going up. Even though we're telling everyone about how to protect themselves, it still keeps going up. People keep falling victims to these scams. So it's increasingly important that the information, you retain it and share it to prevent this. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Postal Inspector Joe Marcus so he can talk to you about the fraud. Joe, just let me know when you're ready for me to move forward in the presentation. It's all yours.
Sure. You guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Joseph.
Okay, awesome. So just a quick background. My name is Joe Marcus. I am a federal agent with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. I'm assigned to the Eastern District of New York mail fraud team. So what we do is we cover mail fraud investigations within exactly that, the Eastern District of New York. So Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk County. Primarily, these investigations obviously include an element of the use of the U.S. mail. So we'll get into some of these things. I have been a postal inspector for over 9 years, but I've been with the agency for over 12 years. So I'm very familiar with the ins and outs of these types of investigations, and I can offer sort of a different perspective because you're hearing it from an actual agent who is, you know, knee deep in these types of investigations, and I can offer a little bit of a different perspective and little, you know, tips and tricks here and there in order to make sure that you don't fall victim to the same types of schemes. So one of the schemes that we have here are the lottery sweepstake cases here, and I actually have one of these cases myself. The case that I'm investigating, the individuals that are perpetrating this fraud are located in the country of Jamaica. Jamaica is a hotbed for these types of schemes. It's very prevalent there. It's very lucrative. So what happens is they are sending these what appear to be legitimate letters through the U.S. mail to mostly elderly victims, in which it states that they had won a prize, whether it's through Publishers Clearinghouse or some sort of other entity of similar nature in which they had won millions of dollars. Now, in order to collect their winnings, they're requiring you to pay something like a tax or a fee, which could be tens of thousands of dollars in order to collect your prize. But none of that is ever legitimate. It's illegal in the United States to enter these types of lotteries, especially foreign lotteries. The number one, sign here is if they had advised you that you had won a lottery in another country, you're not eligible as a U.S. citizen to win any sort of foreign lottery. They'll tell you that you won, but again, there is no prize, and they're very convincing, and that's why they target the elderly. In many instances, some of these elderly individuals have no family. They have no one else to talk to, so that's why they're targeted. They'll befriend you. They'll call you every day. How's the weather? What'd you have for breakfast? What are you watching on TV? Those types of things in order to build a relationship, but they don't legitimately care about these people whatsoever. It's all about money. And they'll say, hey, yes, thank you. I got, the 10,000 you sent, but we have a new attorney involved in order to collect your winnings. Can you send another 5,000? You're going to get your prize, but there is no prize. They'll also convince the victims, the elderly victims, that we're the bad guys. When we step in to help them, they'll say, no, that's just someone trying to step in and steal your money, which makes it difficult on our end as investigators to collect facts and try to figure out who's doing this, because when the victim is non-cooperative because they've been convinced otherwise, it makes the job so much harder to try to stop it. And a lot of these instances as well, we'll stop a package that has $30,000 in cash in it, rightfully return it to its owner, and then the next day they're in the post office mailing it again, because these people are so convincing. So just right there, the 4 C's: call, convince, coach, and collect. I think I touched on all of those. It's just they're relentless, and all they care about is the money.
Joseph, I'm just is part of it that they won't report it too because they're embarrassed by it? Is that another issue as well?
So some people will, if they realize that this is part of a scam, yeah, some will obviously have issues with talking about it and opening up, which again makes an investigator's job a little bit harder, because the more cooperation you have, it's easier to find the truth and figure out who's doing this to victimize them. And in the case that I have, we have been very successful in getting people to cooperate, send us documents, people who keep good notes, records, receipts, and stuff like that. And actually, about 2 weeks ago, I indicted someone, and I'm waiting to extradite them from the country of Jamaica for these crimes. So we are doing things here on the U.S. forefront. We do have powers that extend past the United States in order to hold these people accountable. So I am very familiar with these types of cases. They are very emotion-driven in the sense that they are preying on people's emotions. They're very similar to a romance scam, but instead of a romantic relationship, it's a friendship. And that's what these guys try to, instill in these people. And yes, I can see many people being embarrassed to come forward or to even cooperate with us once they've realized that, they've been taken. How to prevent it? Just don't give your information out to anyone. I don't give any information out to anyone over the phone. I get 4 of these calls a day between both of my phones, from all over the place, whether it's for lottery, it's for the solar, they just want to gather information. Don't give out certainly any financial information to anyone over the phone. Treat it as if it's cash in your hand. Would you just hand cash to a stranger who came up to you and asked you for your information? There's no difference between that or giving out your account information. Again, they may ask for fees and stuff like that. That's a clear indication that it's, something isn't right here. And what Donna had said before, if it doesn't feel right, it certainly doesn't. And my motto, what I learned early in this job, especially when it comes to fraud, is if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So keep that in mind when, trying to figure out whether these things are legitimate or not. So what a lot of these guys do is, because it seems a little fishier to send money to someone, let's say to Jamaica, if they say, hey, you won $1 million, but you need $10,000 to claim it, go to a Western Union and wire money to the country of Jamaica, that adds a layer of questionability, right, to the victim and say, hey, that doesn't seem right. But what they do is they're smart. They'll say, yeah, sure. Send it to the U.S. processing, lottery acceptance processing, department. And it's at 123 Main Street in New York, New York, suite number 30. Suite number 30 is actually the apartment of a mule whose job is to just solely collect payments. They take a cut of the payment, whether it's 10, 20%, which I've seen, statistically, and send the rest. Then they send the rest over to the guy in Jamaica. They're in on it. They know that this is a scam. They're profiting from it. But it adds a sense of, and I don't even want to use the word legitimacy, but it adds another layer of, between the actual bad guy who's perpetrating this overseas and the victim here in the United States. And VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. So what they'll do is they will use these phone numbers that stuff like Magic Jack, but there's all these apps now that you can download that mask people's cell phone numbers. For example, like if my number is 516-555-1234, I'm getting calls from 516-555-2390. So they mask even not only just your area code, but like the first 3 digits of your cell phone to make it seem like it's someone who's near you, when in reality they're across across the ocean somewhere. The wires, like I had said, Western Union, MoneyGram, those types of things, they'll ask you to send the money, which they'll pick up the cash directly. iTunes prepaid debit cards, I can assure you, under zero circumstances until the end of time, ever be asked to pay your taxes or anything like that, or collect winnings with iTunes or prepaid debit cards. It simply will never happen. That should be a #1 red flag. And we've done a great job with communicating with various retailers who are like the #1 sellers of these things, like Walgreens, CVS, Target, Walmart, and they've actually rolled out programs to train their employees and cashiers to identify if elderly people are coming in and constantly buying gift cards and stuff like that, and getting a little bit more information from them. And I've heard in the past people who've successfully been spoken out, talked out of buying these debit cards because the cashier had told them, hey, this may be a scam. So it's a community effort here. It's not just law enforcement, but we all need to, be on the same page. Avoid the sales pitches. Those are normally a red flag as well. If someone is telling you, hey, come and get a free lunch, or, the sweepstakes, hey, win a boat, or a free trip to Hawaii when you're leaving a trade show, or, leaving the supermarket, they got those little cardboard boxes, you fill out the cards. Never do those, because what is going to happen is now you're on a lead list. These bad guys will pay these companies to collect your information in order to now build a lead list, which you'll see here. Bad guys I've seen through doing search warrants and people's emails, addresses, and stuff like that, they buy these spreadsheets that have everyone's information, that have names, date of births, social security numbers, phone numbers, mother's maiden name, various security questions, stuff like that, your age, and they're buying them because they're going to target you now, because you just entered the sweepstakes to win a free, cruise to Hawaii when there was never a free cruise to Hawaii. So never enter those things. I can guarantee you there's never a winner. You're just going to wind up on a lead list, which these guys refer to as sucker lists. So what they'll do is if they get you once, you're considered a sucker now. They're going to keep trying you, and then if they do have success with you, they're going to possibly sell your information and create their own lead list to someone else now. So your information is going to constantly be out there, and it's constantly going to be sold and resold for purposes of fraud. The grandparent scam is a common one that we're seeing now. A grandparent receives a phone call or an email from their grandchild saying, hey, I'm in trouble. I'm in Cancun. I got picked up. I don't know. I had a beer on the street. I was arrested, and now they're holding me. I need help. I need to be bailed out, that type of thing. I can assure you, the easiest way to combat this one, and they'll convince you, hey, listen, don't tell mom, or don't tell dad, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, like grandma, like grandpa, can you please help me? The easiest way to combat this one, and your grandkid would get over it, whether or not, they were actually in trouble or not, is just call their parents. Where is Johnny? Is Johnny in Cancun? No, he's in his room. It's a scam. But things like this are, this can be made easy, and I'll just steer off course for a second, but what I found with this type of scam in my experience as an investigator is this all comes back to my view of the world, that the world puts way too much information out there when it comes to things like social media. So, for example, how can a grandparent be targeted in an investigation like this? So they're cruising Facebook and they see, someone who posts way too much photos and it says, yep, celebrating grandma's 75th birthday, and grandma's tagged in it. Now you have grandma's name. You go through the photos. Well, at the birthday dinner, the grandson is there. He's tagged. You go on his page. Who is his best friend he's always posting with? His best friend is John. When they make the call, they say, yes, grandma, it's me. I'm with John. We were in, and grandma knows that John is his best friend. We were just in Mexico and, we got in trouble. Can you please help us out? So again, I'm always under the assumption that I firmly believe that people put way too much out there. So sort of restrict what you really put out on social media and what the world can see, because it can be used against you. Yes, it is nice to share photos of your grandkids and stuff like that, but make sure your page is private, lock down your security settings, and make sure that nothing is too public, because they will use it against you, and that there are bad guys out there that are actively doing this right now as we speak. So try to contact the grandchild, no matter how convincing that they are, or your kids, to see whether or not they are actually around, or are they away. And never wire money based on a request made over the phone, because they're gonna come up with 1,000,001 excuses as to why that money wasn't enough. Well, now they need a lawyer. Well, that lawyer dropped out. I need more money. That type of thing. So just be careful with that. Charity fraud. From what I understood, like statistically, and I read, there's very few charities that actually give 100% of the donations that are actually, given to those charities. A lot of these that are bogus and they have legitimate names are things like, obviously the Breast Cancer Society or Children's Cancer Fund of America. They have legitimate names, but very little, if any, actually goes to the charities. But if you go online and you type in, there's a website that actually, it slipped my mind, but there's a website that will actually give you a breakdown on how much the charities actually give and where they actually direct their money within the organization.
You can also use Charity Navigator, charitynavigator.org. And there's other companies like that out there that will be helpful. And, we can always pass that information along on things that you can use. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So doing your due diligence, before donating money can also help. Only donate by check. Don't send it to John Smith. Make sure it goes to the business organization, because now there's a record of it. Don't ever mail cash. Don't wire money through means of like a bank transfer of anything like that, or a Western Union. Certainly don't donate via iTunes gift cards again, or it just doesn't make any sense. They're going to keep going back to the quickest way for them to make their money.
Do scammers also use like known charity names though? Like, could they come and say, "Hey, we're from the American Cancer Society," or would they like a made up one?
Of course, but the easiest way to combat that is to go on the company's legitimate website and figure out how to donate from there. Don't be pressured, because everything is a race against time with them. They're going to put pressure on you to donate now. But just take a step back and evaluate what's going on, and take a look at the charity's website and see where the money's going. What the easiest way to donate is, but leave a paper trail. Don't, once you send gift cards and stuff like that, it's gone. Those things can't be retrieved. So some of the other things, work at home job opportunities, especially with COVID, this type of scam was rampant because everyone was home. A lot of these things are a way for bad guys to steal your personal information. So you fill out a job application, right? What's on a job application? Your name, date of birth, social security number, phone numbers, bank accounts to direct deposit money, stuff like that. That's an easy way for you to fall victim to a financial scheme. A couple of the other ones where you'll get they're no job at all, but you'll get wrapped up possibly as a mule, or something in what we call reshipping scams. So overseas, guys will buy credit card numbers of victims in the United States, buy a ton of electronics, high-end merchandise, let's say from Best Buy, because Best Buy doesn't deliver to, the middle of nowhere, let's say Nigeria. And so they'll utilize people in the United States with these work-at-home jobs where your job is, let's say, they'll give you, a non-existent job title of, I am a product processor or something like that. All you're doing is receiving stolen merchandise unknowingly and then putting a new label on it and shipping it to, somewhere that now the bad guy controls. Shipping it overseas and getting it to the places where that business may not ordinarily deliver to. But now you've used someone else's credit card. Someone else's credit card was used for that merchandise, and you may not know it. So a lot of those jobs are particularly, I would say fictitious. So don't give out like I said, your banking information to anybody. Treat it like cash. If there's no salary, like regular salary paid, what they'll do is they'll say, well, here's an upfront, even with like the secret shopper stuff, they'll say, we're going to send you $1,000 check. You got to go into Walmart and you need to just verify, you need to observe, buy an item for $100, cash this check for $1,000, go into Walmart, buy an item for $100 or less, and just observe, like, are the cashiers being responsive? Are they on their phones? All this stuff, write a report, like they'll give you a form, fill it out, send it back to us, and then, you can keep $500 for yourself, but then we need the other $400 back as the balance. So what happens is you deposit that check, you think you're going to make, $500, you get to keep the item, whatever you bought for $100 or less, you send them the $400, the next 2 days, that check bounces, and now you're responsible for the full amount and you're out the money. So they do it through use of counterfeit money orders and checks and stuff like that. But yeah, try to do your research. If you think it's a legitimate business, do some homework before you possibly sign up for it. Check with, the Better Business Bureau is the #1 place I would say to check, and you can see if they're accredited or not. And if they, regardless, they'll still have a rating, anywhere through A through F. So again, just do your homework. That's the best way to, to prevent, some sort of fraud with that type of scheme. Investment frauds. So these get a little bit trickier too. But again, it all comes down to doing your homework and sticking with the notion that I had advised earlier, as if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Bogus securities, commodities, loans, counterfeit securities, or, offers to buy stocks and stuff like that, where you'll be dumping a ton of money into what you believe is a legitimate investment and getting statements and stuff back saying that your portfolio or whatever is performing very well, when in fact there's absolutely nothing that's backing it. They'll say, if the average bank is giving 1.29% on a money market, or let's say a savings account, but they're offering to give you 30% guaranteed on your money, that should be certainly a red flag. Nothing is guaranteed when it comes to things like that. Yeah, the risk reward concept. So think about it. Would you possibly put $100,000 into a company that you only heard about over the phone after 5 minutes to possibly make 20% on it? Make $20,000, but risk the $100,000 just as a gamble? I mean, if you're a gambler, then I could see you answering yes. But if you're trying to make a financially sound decision on, where you're going to put your money, I would say no. Review what they're telling you. Ask around. Like, you don't have to divulge your full financial, story with a friend or family member, but just say, hey, listen, like, what do you think about this? Does this sound legit, or is it something you would do? But it's all based on what I had said previously. All these schemes have a common, a common theme here, and that common theme is high pressure tactic. It's, do it now. You're gonna miss out. Like, this offer is only good for, the next, hour, like that type of deal. So always just say, listen, like, if it's legit and everything's on the up and up, like, give me time to do homework. I have to do my due diligence. Remember, it's your money, so you can do as you please with it. But just again, check with do a Google search and see what comes up for some of these companies. The IRS tax fraud, this is going around a lot, especially this time of year with, the tax, I think it's actually tomorrow, but it may have been extended to Monday, the tax filing deadlines. The scammers posing as representatives from the IRS. A lot of times with this type of scam, this is a tremendous scam based in overseas in India. Whereas, like I told you before, the lottery scams is extremely prevalent in like Jamaica. The IRS scams, we're seeing these call centers that could literally have hundreds of people just cold calling people saying that the IRS and scaring you into believing that there's a warrant for your arrest, that there's suspicious activity on your social security number, and you have to pay a fee in order to clear this up. Again, but that's just like I had said before, that's a high pressure tactic. It's preying on someone's emotions and, mental, well-being, where they believe that someone's going to be at their door in the next hour if they don't pay these fines. And a lot of times with these too, they're going to ask for, again, iTunes gift cards or, gift cards like that. In the history of time, has anyone ever paid a single bill with an iTunes gift card? Certainly not, to get yourself out of an arrest warrant if the IRS has a warrant. I'm assigned to an IRS task force. I work with the IRS all the time. I can absolutely assure you that the IRS is not going to call you and tell you that you have a warrant for your arrest. You will just get a knock at the door and, you will be arrested and processed. They're not going to give you a heads up, and they're not going to give you an opportunity to get under it by buying gift cards. It just doesn't make sense. That should be a red flag, right away. Yeah, like I said, the IRS is not calling. The IRS isn't calling. The IRS is extremely busy, especially around this time of year. They don't have time to call people and tell them, hey, there's suspicious activity on the social security number. If you don't pay us, we're going to come arrest you. It doesn't make sense. If you are concerned, call the IRS directly. They're going to tell you the exact same thing that I just told you. But this goes with some of the other, the other similar scams that we see, like utility companies. For example, we just received a complaint that we're working up on this team for people are getting cold called, elderly people getting cold called, saying that if they don't pay this fee, that their cable is going to be shut off, their phone and internet. And what they're doing is they're being pressured into mailing checks to a PO box that we're like currently monitoring now. But again, it's high pressure saying, hey, if you don't do X, we're going to do Y. And that, some people get pressured and fall for it because they don't want to be in trouble or anything like that. Lonely heart scams. These come back, to the typical romance scams. I can assure you that 10 out of 10 of these scams have never, the people have never met in person. They'll prey on your emotions. This is very similar to the Grandparent scam, where they'll say, hey, listen, this is a long running scam too. Like, this isn't like the IRS scam where they call you like, hey, in an hour, if you don't pay this, we're gonna, send someone to arrest you. Like, these scams can take months or sometimes years. I personally know someone who fell for one of these scams and lost, her entire life savings. They'll convince you that they're in love with you, but again, another red flag is 9 times out of 10 they're always overseas. They'll say, hey, I'm a doctor, or I'm stationed in the military. I'm over in the UK. I don't have access to traditional banking. Like, do you mind wiring me money? I'm trying to catch a flight to come see you, but my accounts are frozen. I moved some money around and now I can't do anything. So they're going to convince you to send them money, and it's always going to be a scam. If what I would say, if you get wrapped up in one of these things, the best way to determine too is try to see if the person will video chat with you. They'll most likely never be the person in the picture that they had provided for the profile or photos that they send you, which is perfect. A perfect example here. There's websites. So if you go to Google reverse image search, if you put in a photo that exists anywhere on the internet, it will most of the time show you where else that photo exists. So there's another one called tineye.com, TINEYE. So if that photo shows up on someone's LinkedIn page or somewhere in a news article, and this is the person that you're talking to, if you put in that reverse image search, it will show you where it exists elsewhere on the internet, which is pretty interesting. So public domain photos and stuff like that, photos that can be used for commercial or personal use, are usually where these guys take these photos from. And they'll convince you that, they are the person that's, in the photo, that they love you, and keep just essentially bilking you for money. But in reality, if you look on the bottom right, that's what's going on. Like, those are guys committing a romance scam. Keep your personal information private until you met in person. Turn off the location settings on your mobile phone. Check out the romance image, name, and email address. Side note, I work a lot of, and what I'm seeing here is a lot of cryptocurrency investigations, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, things of that nature. Now, what the bad guys are doing, because it is difficult to try to trace this type of currency, they are directing elderly people or anybody wrapped up in a romance scam to convert cash at these crypto ATMs. That literally deposit cash into the ATM, get a one-time use paper wallet that has Bitcoin and cryptocurrency on it, send them that address, and then now the money is theirs, and it's nearly impossible to trace. So a couple of months ago, I had interviewed a woman who put $250,000 through a Bitcoin ATM. She was 60-something years old here on Long Island. Myself and an NYPD detective went out and interviewed her, and she firmly believed that she was in an online relationship with the actor Keanu Reeves. Had short photos. She claims that he was wrapped up on a movie set while filming. His money was frozen. She kept sending him money through, through this Bitcoin ATM, and had lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's preying on her emotions, or on anyone's emotions, and it's one of those where you really have to juggle whether or not your emotional state is, as important as your financial state, but those two things, certainly go hand in hand. So just to backtrack to the create a fraud safety net for you and your family, it's extremely helpful to what you can learn just by staying in tune with, your loved ones, friends, family, and just keeping an open dialogue on what's going on. Again, with speaking about investment opportunities, job opportunities, things like that, if you just keep an open dialogue, your friends and family may catch on to something that may not seem, legitimate, and can possibly save you from, a financial disaster. These are some of the resources you can use. The FTC, the AG's office, Department of Justice, Maine Better Business Bureau, the credit bureaus, the new credit freeze law. So what you can do is, if you're a victim of identity theft, you can freeze your credit temporarily with all three bureaus, with Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So no new inquiries can be made on your behalf. But if you're frozen, and let's say it's time to go lease a new car, they're obviously going to do a credit inquiry. You'd have to temporarily lift the freeze on all three of those bureaus to allow that inquiry, that legitimate inquiry, to pass through, and then you put the gate back down and freeze again. And Donna, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you now eligible for one free credit report from each bureau per year now?
Yes, from each credit bureau per year, you can get a free credit report. And certainly, I would encourage everyone to look at their credit report, especially, and that just doesn't go just for identity theft, but for any type of scam you could be involved with, because all of them can lead to identity theft. Joe?
Yeah, so it's just staying on top of your credit profile, and seeing if something doesn't seem right. You can start to look into it, and possibly refer it to law enforcement, or things of that nature. That's our phone number. That's our website too. If you wanted to report some sort of fraud, you could also report it to the Federal Trade Commission, your local police department. It certainly helps with the banks to get an actual police report when filing an ID theft claim, or some sort of fraud on your financial status. They'll most of the time require a local police department's police report, which we can then work with the local police department, or run a parallel investigation.
Also, I want to say our website, it has been shortened. It's www.uspis.gov. Now I want to bring on, thank you so much, Joe, for this good information. I want to bring on Bernard, who's going to talk about, please stay on the line though, because we may get some more questions. I want to bring Bernard on to talk about AARP and the work that they do in fraud prevention. Bernard?
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. Yes. So Joe, thank you so much. Great presentation. I also wanted to share what AARP has to offer. We have a nationwide effort to arm people through our AARP Fraud Watch Network. So you can check out the resources online, aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. You can sign up to get bi-weekly, what we call our watchdog alerts. So you can learn more about scams, how they work, how to avoid them. Local scams, we create through AARP. We have a scam map that volunteers are working on that, and you can use the scam tracking map online to learn and share information about those latest scams. You can sign up by texting FWN to 50757. If you think you've been a target of a scam, call the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline. That number is 877-908-3360 to report scams and fraud. In addition to, you can always go to the, I'm sorry, Joe already mentioned this, Donna already mentioned, but you can go to the Attorney General's office and call that number or visit their website.
And Bernard, like, and also shredding, is one of those ways we can actually fight that, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Getting that documentation, all of those sensitive materials that have so much information, which you won't believe, just the simplest piece of information, like what that can lead to, what can be taken from that.
Right. Which is why, in preparation for our free shred day, sponsored by AARP Long Island and with Herald, we have our April 30th, Saturday, April 30th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we need you to register for it. But that's why we want to be sure that you bring the right documents with you, right? So we have a do's and don'ts. And Donna, I don't know if you want to, do you want to walk us through those do's and don'ts? What's accepted, what's not accepted?
Sure. So
Okay.
no problem. So certainly confidential information. If you have information, say that has your name and address and any of your identifiers on it, bring that information for shredding. If you have paper that you shredded at home, but you didn't use like a cross-cut shredder with the small shreds, bring that as well, but don't bring more than 3 bags, because obviously we want everyone to get an opportunity to shred their information. Some of the things
I will say, Donna, I will say that you can definitely fill those grocery bags. You can definitely fill a lot of documents, because in preparation for this shred day, I just keep on filling them. And let me tell you, there's still plenty of room. So for the folks out there, you think 3 bags isn't enough, you can bring a lot, try to condense it. You'll be surprised. You can bring a lot of documents, in those 3 bags.
That's true. That's true. And some of the things though that are not accepted, if your information isn't confidential, don't bring that. Like for magazines and newspapers, don't bring those. You can dispose of that with your recycling. Take your name off of the magazine or the newspaper if you get it delivered, and then you can bring those to be shredded. Documents from work. This is a free service offered by AARP to the communities and the Long Island with the Long Island Herald Initiative. And so what we want to do is have consumers be able to shred their documents. So if you would, just bring your items that need to be shredded, not something from your job. Also, no metal, no plastic items. So if you have clips on your information, your binders or things like that, take that off and throw that in your regular trash, or your recyclable, not in for shredding, because that can damage the shredding machine, and then it makes it difficult for anyone else to get their documents shredded. So those are some of the things that we want you to remember when preparing for this. shred event. It's once again going to be Saturday, April 30th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's an opportunity for you to help keep your identity safe by bringing your information out for shredding.
And just let everybody know too, that we're doing that, we're doing that rain or shine. So come on out, and you can also register at liherald.com/shred. So really easy, liherald.com/shred.
Thank you. So before we end today, we have a few more minutes, and we did get some questions, and I want to go over this. Joe, could you help us out with this? What would you tell your elderly parents to do with passwords? Change them monthly? How should they change their passwords?
The best way to deal with passwords is to never have the same password for every application. What I would do is I would maintain like a physical piece of paper, not stored on your phone anywhere, that has a list of your passwords, or have an Excel spreadsheet that's password protected on your computer or on your phone somewhere. But the best way to do it is, you can change them often. Just try not to use the same password for everything, because what's going to happen is if someone buys your information, let's say somewhere on the dark web or anything like that, and they have a password to your email, they're going to go in absolutely every application using that password, trying to get in, whether it's a bank account, it's your Target account that has your credit card attached to it. They're going to find absolutely every avenue to use that one password for. So try not to use the same password across the board. But yes, you can refresh them every once in a while. There's no real standard answer on how often you should be changing them, but the better way is to just don't have the same password for everything.
Now, Joseph, I know like the best thing is always to write it down, but I think people are probably like all of us where we lose that. There are like some apps out there that supposedly you can, like something, I think something called Keeper, you can put passwords in. I mean, is that safe to do, or should we avoid those kind of things as well?
Well, I mean, it all depends on how secure that app is. Like some of these guys will put apps on the App Store that
Right.
for purposes of, that are unsecured to just take, it's almost like a phishing attempt where they'll allow users to download or put the data in, but they have no legitimate intent on using the apps. That's why I personally would, just keep them, in a drawer somewhere, or, tape it to the top side of your nightstand, in the drawer or something like that, somewhere where you're not going to lose it. It's much more difficult for someone to get access to that than it is in the digital world. So I would personally either do that, or, like I said, keep it on your desktop and your computer, hide it in a few folders, and make sure that actual file is encrypted. Then maybe write down that password somewhere, for the encryption file.
Joe, Don, I'm sure you have more questions, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. A question for you. Some companies are offering now a VPN. I know, companies offer VPNs for their employees, but there are now companies that offer a VPN for your home, for your personal use. Is that the way to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So getting a router, getting a Wi-Fi is not enough anymore. You should be investing in a company that offers a VPN.
It certainly doesn't hurt, because it's very difficult for someone to backtrack on you. How a VPN usually works is that there's servers all over the world in which now your IP address is going to bounce all over the place. So it's hard to actually determine where you are. So for one example, if I was tracking someone's IP that was using a VPN, starting right now, in 2 minutes, it may be hitting in Japan. 3 minutes from there, it's in New Jersey. 5 minutes after that, it's in Germany. It's very difficult to track it, which makes the life a little bit harder for the bad guys to track exactly where you are as well.
By the way, really quickly,
It
what
also
a
makes
VPN
it.
is?
Say that again.
Sorry, Joseph. Can you explain what a VPN is?
Yeah.
Like,
A VPN is like a virtual network. So essentially, when you log in at home with your Wi-Fi, right, it's your internet service provider, whether let's say it's Optimum or Fios, is giving you an IP address. The internet service provider is handing that out to you. Now, it gets a little more complex, and I could give like a full in-depth technical, training on this, but your IP could be either static or dynamic, meaning if it's static, if they give you that IP address, that's your IP address that stays with you for indefinitely, which makes it easier for bad guys to get into your network and play around and possibly, install malware on your computer, which now they're, inside your computer and running, in the background and looking in your folders, your files, stuff like that, which is why I mentioned if you are going to hold passwords, make sure it's encrypted because it's harder for those guys. So a VPN actually makes it extremely difficult for you to essentially virtually stay in one place. Your location is bounced all over the world through these nodes or these, servers that are all over the world. So it just adds another layer, added layer of security.
I think we need to do a webinar just on social media and protecting your IT, your technology at home, right? I think
Absolutely.
Well, Joe would be good for that.
Yeah, I think we can cover a whole webinar on that. Joe, you brought up the IRS. So we know that the IRS won't call you. They won't ask you for money that way, right? But can the IRS show up to your home?
I've never heard of an instance where the IRS is showing up at your house unless it's to arrest you.
Really?
And that would be IRS criminal investigation. So those are guys that look just like me. They're, they'll have a vest on, usually 6 a.m., knocking on your door, and it's never a good sign. But in order for that to happen, you would have been knowingly committing, a large-scale fraud in order for that to happen. But the IRS is certainly not going to go door to door saying, "Oh, hey, you underreported, $500 in income on your taxes from 2016, and now that I'm standing here, you better give me a $500 iTunes gift card." That it's certainly never going to happen. The IRS, I've never heard of an instance where the IRS is coming to your door, seeking like anything to fulfill a debt or anything like that.
Okay.
We have one last question, if you don't mind, I'd like to take. I'm a victim of a phishing fraud scheme. Who do I report this to for the investigation?
So that everything that we touched upon today, any of those avenues or entities would be great. Also, the IC3, FBI's Internet Complaint Board. Complaint Board would be a good spot. Your local police department. And it also depends on, it's sort of a general question. You'd need a little bit more information on it, because if it's a phishing scam that affects your bank, then obviously you want to call your bank and lock down that and go the avenue of, possibly an ID theft and the credit bureaus and stuff like that. But as far as for investigation, you can go through your local police department. If there's mail involved, you can certainly reach out to us, the FBI, the state attorney general's office, those or all entities in place to assist you with those types of fraud, the fraud complaints.
Thank you so much, Joe. Bernard or Michael?
Yeah, I have one other question real quick. When you mentioned freezing your credit reports, and then if you do want to lease and do something, how you have to lift it, but how long lead time do you have to lift it? Can you lift it the same day you're going to the dealership, or do you lift it a week before? I mean, how does that work?
I think if you lift it the day before, that should suffice. You don't really want to leave it open, because now you're leaving yourself susceptible. The whole purpose of the freeze is to make sure that no one can come in and do an inquiry on your behalf. If you were to ask me, or what I were to do, if I'm planning on leasing a car tomorrow, I would say like 10 o'clock tonight, is safe, because it's very difficult for somebody to go into a bank at that time of night. Even on the West Coast, the physical banks are closed to go in and do anything, or by the time the next business day rolls over, if anything was attempted, you'd probably be notified. So I would say like the day before is okay. I don't know the answer on whether or not you can lift it on the phone while sitting in the dealer, have the inquiry made, and then close the gate again. We'd have to, and each bureau actually may have a different stance on how they actually do that logistically. So it may not be across the board. Experian may require this amount of time versus Equifax. You'd have to touch base with all three bureaus to determine that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And, just real quick with the, you guys talking about the social media and stuff like that. I'm big on that. I'm also like one of our intern coordinators here. So the first thing I tell the students too is to lock down your social media, because people put way too much stuff out there. Just how it ties to this real quick. And just to be careful of what you put out there. Like I had told you with the grandparent scam, let's say grandma's 75th birthday and stuff like that. Be very careful what's posted online. And I'm going to leave this with you, which may concern some people based on what they have on their profiles and stuff like that. But if I'm a bad guy and I see, I see Bernard posting his profile photo and he's got a sweatshirt on that says, just throwing a town out there, let's say East Meadow Bulldogs, right? Why would I care about that? And if, let's say Bernard has photos, again, his mother's birthday party or something like that, she's tagged in the photo. Why are those two things important to me as a bad guy? Why would I care about the logo on his sweatshirt and his mother's, 75th birthday party or something like that? And I'll tell you what it is. What are two of the most common challenge questions when logging into your bank if you have a password reset? It's what is your school mascot and what is your mother's maiden name? Those two things people put out there unknowingly all the time. And bad guys pay attention to things like that. So just be very careful what you post, because it may seem like it's something that is, harmless, but if you're smart enough and you're a very sophisticated bad guy, those things could be extremely helpful clues in now resetting your online banking profiles, your passwords, stuff like that. And now I'm going to, log into your accounts and, do what I have to do. And it's all because someone had harmlessly put something out there that I can use to my advantage. So again, I'd love to come back and give you guys a little bit of a crash course on some social media stuff and stuff like that. Because
we're absolutely going to do that. That would be a great opportunity to share. And for everyone out there listening and part of this program today, these are the type of programs that, again, AARP will gladly sponsor, but it's for your family. It's not just for, mom and dad, 50 and older. It's for everyone to join. Your grandkids, your kids, everyone's on social media. So better we start protecting ourselves there so that the bad guys can't get us. So thank you. This was great.
Yeah, I think my parents are better with social media than I am. And yeah, and I think we're all, I'm like right now, I kind of want to jump on my Facebook and start pulling some stuff down, just thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I want to thank AARP New York, our sponsor, for being here. Also, for the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Donna, Joseph, and Bernard with AARP, fantastic stuff. I'm not sure if all of us will be back. I know most of us will be back, if not all of us. Not next Thursday, but the Thursday after, because we have the holidays.
Thank you. Yes, I think I made that mistake. It's not next Thursday.
Yeah, no worries. It's in 2 weeks. We're going to come back. We're going to be right here on your computer. It's April 28th at 12 noon, right? We're going to be at noon again. And we're going to be talking about romance scams. We've kind of touched on that a little bit here, but we're going to really go in depth of that a little bit more. And we're going to talk, a lot about that. And then just 2 days after that, on April 30th, that is when we're going to be doing our shredding event, which Bernard had talked about earlier. So make sure you register for that. You can do that at liherald.com/shred. Donna, was there anything else you wanted to add to any of this at all?
No, just thank you for letting us get this information out. We look forward to the romance scam event on April 28th at noon, and certainly the shred event on April 30th. And just getting this information out is really important. And we encourage you to tell your friends, tell your family, make sure they're on, because we always recap and they can always learn something new. Just because you're on today or maybe the week before doesn't mean we don't have new bits to tell you the next event. So make sure you sign on, and thank you so much for having us.
And Joseph as well.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And Bernard.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week. Or no, in 2 weeks. Sorry, we'll see you in 2 weeks. You got me to get Bernard. 2 weeks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.